John Sarianides, usually joined by my partner WEEI's John Lyons, but he is on assignment tonight. So I'm joined by my other partner, Kevin Stone, who usually does the Monday Night Football show with me, and I'm joined by my partner on the Patriots Pulse preview show, John Sapochetti. First things first, gentlemen, great to see you guys as always. How are you this evening?
Doing okay. Good win by the Patriots today. They did what we talked about in the preview show, that they were going to go out there, take care of the football. And look, Drake May's back in the MVP discussion with an incredible performance. I know against the weak football team, but he still got the job done today.
You know how I'm doing. Let's go.
Wow, Stone bringing it. And by the way, Sap, good job. You look like Bono if he was an outdoorsman with a woodsy beard. Nice job.
Thank you.
No, I think, look, Drake May, and somebody asked me this when we were going down to locker room availability about, does it matter as much because it was against the Jets? I don't care who it's against. That's an NFL team. That's an NFL defense. That's coached by an NFL staff. I don't care who you do it against. It's an impressive performance, and boy, was he impressive today. 19 of 21, 256 yards, 5 touchdown passes, and a passer rating of 157. And if people thought that the MVP conversation was over, well, he bolted himself back into the conversation. And look, going into this game, fellas, we all, I think, said the same thing. We thought that this was going to be one of those games. The Patriots have reached the attrition phase of the season where they've got a lot of guys out. We thought this was going to be one of those games where, look, win 20-10, get out of there healthy, get ready for Miami, and try to wrap up the division. Apparently, the Patriots had other plans. Mike Vrabel, his staff, his players must have had a completely different kind of conversation because they jump out to a 14-0 lead, build a 35-3 lead by halftime, and they turn this thing into a laugher pretty quick. This was never a game. Now, look, you can debate whether or not the Jets showed up. They might still be on the bus waiting to get into their locker room. But the bottom line is games like this for me come down to one thing. Good football teams know how to step on the throat of bad football teams. They know how to beat bad football teams. Patriots rolled into town today, stomped on them, took care of business, and improved to 13-3.
Kevin?
Sorry, I thought you were going to go. Look, the most impressive thing to me, and John, how much have we talked about the slow starts on both sides of the ball? Complete opposite today. On the road, granted, this was not a true road environment. This was a home game for the Patriots today. It was deafening at times when the Patriots were on defense in terms of, trying to rattle the Jets' offense. So this wasn't a true road test, but the fast start is the biggest thing to me on both sides of the ball. And, of course, Drake May, you guys touched on it. If he's not the MVP right now, I'm not sure who is. I mean, you can make the argument for Matt Stafford, obviously. I think if Josh Allen and the Bills, well, they're in. So I do think he should still be in the discussion. But what he did today, that was surgical. That was Brady-esque at times. And no, I'm not comparing him to Brady before people freak out. But I haven't seen a game like that from a Patriots quarterback in a long time. And he did join Drew Bledsoe and Tom Brady today as well as the only guys to hit 4,000 yards for the Patriots in a season. So he's my MVP. I know Mike Vrabel said it post-game. He's his MVP. And obviously he's a little biased. But that's an MVP-type game from your leader today. And I was most impressed with the defense as well. They stepped on their throat, didn't let them off the mat. You had the Breece Hall touchdown. But other than that, almost as close to a perfect game, I think, as you can get today.
I think he's right in the running for MVP, but I still favor Matthew Stafford because it is about statistics. But you guys laid out what he did today. The numbers are phenomenal. I don't know how you get a perfect passer rating if you can't get one when you're 19 for 21, 256, 5 touchdowns. I guess 158.3 was just a little higher than 157. He certainly played a perfect game, or as close to it as we've ever seen. But in terms of the MVP, here's the thing. Matt Stafford has to win his division to be MVP. The last time a quarterback won MVP without winning his division, you have to go back to 2003, and there's a few asterisks in that one. Steve McNair and Peyton Manning tied for the division lead. They also tied for the MVP. They shared the MVP that year. Indianapolis won on a technicality or on a tiebreaker. They were given the AFC South championship over Tennessee. Normally, if you finish second place in your division, even if you go 13-4, they're going to give it to someone who's winning their division. And that might be the case for Drake May, that his team is going to win the division provided Buffalo loses today or the Patriots win next week. And now he's up to 30 touchdown passes, 8 interceptions. That's a better look than, say, 25-8. And I know it goes down to numbers, doesn't necessarily have to, but it does. So I think he's right back in contention, and then just see how the Rams play out. And if Matthew Stafford is able to win his division, he probably gets it. If he doesn't, now we have a real discussion.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame that it comes down to the division per se, but you're right. Through the years, we've seen it where it has gone to the player that's had the best numbers and their team has won the division and, of course, has gone on to make a run. And look, May, the last couple of weeks, wasn't as good as he was for about a 10-week stretch there, but obviously he flipped the script today, helped going up against the worst secondary in the league statistically. I mean, the Jets are god-awful at defending the pass. They couldn't be any worse today than they were. They played terribly. They were out of position. They committed penalties. Doesn't matter what coverage you call as a defensive coordinator, they stink on the back end. There's nothing they can do about it. There's nothing their coaches can do about it to make it better. But again, as I said earlier, good teams take advantage of when they play bad teams and they take care of business. And that's exactly what the Patriots did today. And again, I think what makes this win even more impressive was the fact that you had 7 guys who were out for this game today, that these are guys that are either starters or key contributors. And I think the most important thing to point out here is aside from the defense and how well the defense played, when you look at some of the guys that were out, Matt Collins, Kayshon Boutte come to mind. I mean, those are arguably your second and third receivers. Well, you're going to need other guys to step up. Stephon Diggs steps up once again. His 5th 100-yard game of the season, 6 catches, 101 yards. Hunter Henry scores a touchdown. The tight end stepped up and played well. Ramondre Stevenson had a touchdown catch on an H corner route in the red zone. I mean, again, one of the things we could say about Josh McDaniels and the way he has always coached, and this is why I loved this hire when they brought him back, one of the things that he does as well, if not better than any coordinator in the game, is he uses his pieces on a week-to-week basis better than any offensive coordinator in the league. No, this isn't a homer take. This is reality, and I will debate this with anybody, and I know that there were a lot of McDaniels haters out there when Vrabel hired him, but the bottom line here is you saw it today. No one does less with more offensively than Josh McDaniels. He did a great job of getting the tight ends more involved in the passing game, getting the running backs more involved in the passing game, highlighting Diggs as the number one option, and that proved to be the difference here because the Jets, again, with how putrid they are on the back end, they had no answer for what McDaniels and the Patriots were doing, and they were able to take care of business pretty quickly and in an impressive fashion. I mentioned the defense. Defense did their part as well, holding the Jets at 10 points, but really it's 3 points because Breece Hall's touchdown was against the backups. The starting defense did a terrific job. And think about who they're not playing without. They haven't been with Milton Williams now for a few weeks. They haven't been without Robert Spillane now. They've been, I should say, without Robert Spillane now for a couple of weeks. No Harold Landry today. Yes, the secondary was intact, but there were some key pieces missing from that front 7. But it didn't matter. They dominated this Jets offense. They got after Brady Cook, got consistent pressure on him. And other than that 59-yard touchdown run, they were able to keep Breece Hall and company in check as well.
Yeah, just going back to McDaniels real quick, 2 things. One, I might have missed it, but Efton Chisholm was a huge piece of this offense today. Got his first career touchdown. And honestly, the creativity from McDaniels, he probably could have had 2. You know, he had the big play over the middle where he got tripped up, but just design alone, he found his way to get open a few times. And then the touchdown to Diggs, John, you said this right away. That was the old screen pass from the Atlanta Super Bowl. We've seen it for years now. It might have been in Seattle too. I think that might have been the Amendola or Edelman one as well. So just that creativity, it translates over no matter who your receivers are if you have the right coaching. John, you and I have been McDaniels guys all year, but I think you saw it, especially these last few weeks as you start to see, the injuries mounting up. He's still finding ways to get guys open and get creative. And defensively, I have to point out Caleb Von Jason. He has been so consistent and so good for this team, especially as a pass rusher. You mentioned Landry being out. He's been a force off the edge when you need him, and he's been a ball hawk, whether it's recovering fumbles, punching balls out. He might be their most unsung signing of this offseason, and I don't know if he's getting enough credit yet.
Yeah, without question, Kevin, that's a great point. And go back to Drake May, how much he has grown in this his second season. There were a few bumps in the road the last few weeks. Over the last 8 weeks, he had 13 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. He's better than that. And we saw that today with his 5 touchdown passes. But yes, unless you haven't watched the Patriots this year, you have to give a lot of credit to Josh McDaniels, the way he's developed as a quarterback, the way he's kind of worked that offensive line, especially the last month without his starting left tackle and left guard, and the way he's kind of put together a group of wide receivers who one is a legit number one receiver in Stephon Diggs, and a bunch of other guys who have really elevated their play as well. So to average 29 points per game with 1 week left in the season, you got to give him a lot of credit for that.
No, absolutely. And like I said, I think he has done a terrific job. I think he's one of the best offensive coaches in the game. And as I mentioned, I just think he does so much more with less. And you saw it today. That's why when the conversation this week was so focused on who was out versus who was in, it was, I had a hard time being nervous about it because A, they're playing the Jets and the Jets stink. And B, it's Josh McDaniels. I know one thing on offense, he is going to find a way to get the other guys involved. He's going to move the pieces around, and he's going to find a way to put a productive offense on the field. And he did that today. And I know a lot of people have been on his case about the second half a couple of weeks ago against Buffalo, and rightfully so. They only ran the ball 3 times. They struggled to score in the second half of that game, but they only scored 1 touchdown. But I think at the end of the day, again, let's not lose sight of the fact of what this guy has done here. And it's not just with Tom Brady. That's been the knock on Josh McDaniels for a while now that, well, what is he without Tom Brady? We've seen him fail as a head coach in Denver and Las Vegas. And I've always laughed because I'm like, okay, well, I can point to 2008 and what he did with Matt Castle. I can point to 2016 in terms of what he did with Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett. I can point to 2021 in terms of what he did with Mac Jones. So I have plenty of examples that I could give you that this guy can coach. He coaches his ass off. He's smart. He knows how to put his players in position to make plays, and he certainly did it today. And again, you do take the opponent into account, but all that being said, it was still an impressive performance nonetheless. That's still an NFL defense on the other sideline, so you've got to take that into account as well. In terms of the running game, we talked about the importance of the running game coming into this one. Patriots were going to need to run the football to win this football game. They did rush for 155 yards. Ramondre Stevenson had several chunk runs. Travion Henderson had a couple of chunk runs. Overall, I thought the running game was pretty good. I thought the offense had a lot of balance. You saw a lot of formation variants. They ran some empty. They went to some 2 tight end, 3 tight end stuff. They got big when they needed to. Ton of Thayer Mumford. Once again, he's playing a big part in this team in their 22 Rhino package as the 6th offensive lineman. Again, Kevin, you talk about the creativity and him putting guys in position to succeed. I don't want to sound homerish here when I say this, but I'm not sure if Efton Chisholm continues to see his role increase. I don't know how much they're going to miss those other guys. Even Matt Collins. I think Matt Collins does a lot for this team, both as a blocker and as a receiver. But if Chisholm can at least replace the receiving production, they should still be in pretty good hands.
So I think the only place where you're going to see Hollins missing is the red zone. And that catch radius, the big target. I keep going back to that catch he made against Baltimore. I think the 20-yarder in the fourth quarter to start the go-ahead drive. Made through that where only he could catch it, and he went up and got it. So I do think you're going to miss that target, especially in a playoff game when things get tight down there. But no, you're right. And I thought Vrabel had some interesting things to say about him post-game, saying we're going to need him around in terms of his leadership. I talked about Jason being kind of an unsung signing. I don't think any of us realized what Matt Collins was going to bring to the table, more so off the field when they signed him. He's been incredible for this locker room. I know, John, me and you get to see him every day and just sort of how he interacts, but on the field, off the field, doesn't matter. He is a true leader on this team, and I don't know if anybody saw that coming when they signed him.
Do you think the Buffalo Bills would like to have him back? I mean, we keep hearing about the lack of targets for Josh Allen. That guy would look pretty good in a Bills uniform for the Bills. I mean, he's been that good with the Patriots. And as you pointed out, Kevin, the leadership ability and also the way he blocks. I mean, every time you see a long run, you're probably going to catch him on the field making a key block, elevating Henderson or Stevenson to a 20, 25-yard run. He's been a great find, one of the sneaky great acquisitions of the offseason, and he's contributed mightily to what the Patriots have done.
You are watching the Patriots Pulse post-game show. I'm your host, John Sarianides. I'm joined tonight by my partner, Kevin Stone, and my partner on the Patriots Pulse preview show, John Sapochetti. Patriots trouncing the New York Jets here at the Meadowlands, 42-10. Feel free to join the conversation. We know you have plenty of great post-game options out there, but this is a fan of the show. This is the show of the fans, I should say. So if you want to chime in, let us know your thoughts on the Patriots' big win over the Jets today. You can watch us live on Facebook, X, Twitch, and our YouTube page. Feel free to jump on and join the conversation. We would love to hear from you. What did you think about today's performance? What did you like? Were there some things you didn't like? Anything you want to talk about Patriots related regarding today's game, feel free to jump on. Now, of course, the Miami Dolphins visit Foxborough next Sunday, and they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers today in a game that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers needed in order to win the NFC South. Luckily for them, the Carolina Panthers stepped on their PPs, and so as a result, that game next week between those two teams is going to be for the NFC South title. But nonetheless, look, I think coming into this one, there were some people that said, oh, this could be a trap game, a lot of guys out. They could be walking into a potentially tough situation here. The Jets will be highly motivated, divisional rival, blah, blah, blah. Didn't matter. They kicked their ass. They took no prisoners. They moved on. It's interesting, though, because after the game, I asked a couple of players about guys stepping up with all these guys out, guys stepping up and filling some of these key roles and producing. One player in particular didn't like the question, to be honest with you, because he looked at me and he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean guys stepping up? As if to say, you don't think guys like us who don't start can step right in and play right away? I love that. I loved his response. The coach in me loved his response because what that tells me is that no matter what a player's role on this football team is, Mike Vrabel has put them in a position mentally where they know every player counts, every player has a role, every player plays a part in this. And sometimes we say to ourselves, well, that's coach speak, right? Coaches love to say certain things to the media. But after talking to this player and seeing his reaction to my question and how he basically took offense to it, I really, truly believe that now. Not that I didn't believe Vrabel before when he said it, but I really, truly believe that every player in this locker room has bought in and they have played a part in this 13-3 season so far.
Well, first of all, you have a thing for pissing players off after a win, apparently. So, look, we talked about this during the game. I think we said at the same time, Mike Vrabel has changed everything in a matter of less than a year. So, 10 months, basically? And to your point, you've been around the game forever. You guys both know when coaches say stuff, it always sounds like a cliche. Like everything that coaches usually say during media availability or press conferences, it always sounds cliche. And Vrabel, he does, but everything he says, there's intention behind it, and guys buy in. And I think that's the biggest sort of changeover from last year. Is Gerard Mayo could say something, and guys would be like, "Oh, I don't believe you." Like I don't. And it's weird because he was a former player too, but I think it's Vrabel's delivery. I think it's his demeanor. I think it's the fact that he does join in practices. A lot was made of that during training camp, but you see the social media team putting it out. He's still doing it in the dead of winter. Like he's getting after it in practice in mid-December on a frigid day. So I just think it's sort of all-encompassing what he's brought to the table in terms of the messaging and the way it's presented. And I think that's why the entire locker room is bought in.
Well, he had to put time in to become a head coach in Tennessee, right? He went to Ohio State, coached linebackers, went to the Texans, became the defensive coordinator. Then the Titans hired him. He did a fantastic job there, got them to the AFC Championship game in his second season. Then he got let go by the Titans, which is a massive mistake by that poorly run organization. And what does he do instead of, I don't know, doing TV or whatever the season that he's off? He goes to work for the Cleveland Browns and gets integrated in every aspect of their team. offensive line, defensive line, tight ends. That's what a guy does when he's that invested in being a coach. And I think he's a much better coach now than he was in Tennessee. And I think he was a top 5 coach when he was in Tennessee. So that speaks that highly of him. And I remember back in the spring, I'm sure you guys remember this as well. I think the social media team had put out something about Vrabel talking to the players and to the organization. He wants his players to treat everybody in the organization, whether you work in the cafeteria, you park cars, whatever, with class. And that to me means a lot. And that's what's kind of filtered through this entire organization. And he is the leader of this organization.
You know, he practices what he preaches. There's no doubt about that. But the answer that I got reaffirmed for me that, you know what? No, these guys, it doesn't matter. It's, you know, sometimes we hear coaches talk about the next man up mentality, and that could fall under the category of coach speak. I think with this football team, the guys embrace it. They embrace their role. They embrace that next man up mentality. And I think in the end, it proved to pay dividends today. And again, we get it. We know what the Jets are, but the bottom line is you showed up. The guys that practice all week played. They played well. You took care of business. You got it done. And I think at the end of the day, like I said, it speaks to where this football team is right now. And again, look, it's easy to pile on Gerard Mayo and talk about last year. And I've tried to stay away when I talk to players that were here last year or even here the last couple of years. I've tried to stay away from talking about it or comparing it because I don't think it's fair to do that. I don't think it's fair to them. I don't think it's fair to the former coach necessarily. But at the end of the day, to Kevin's point, that's the big difference here. This guy's been a head coach before. He's an alpha. He has an aura about him. He knows how to get guys to buy in and to play hard for him. And that's the difference. And, you know, when he talks about treating people the right way, you see it with us. You see it with the way he treats the media. He treats us with respect, too. There were times in Tennessee when he was testy with the media and he made some comments to members of the media. And he will do that here on occasion. But by and large, I think he's been terrific to deal with, even in tough times, even after losses. He doesn't try to put on some shtick. He doesn't accost members of the media. He doesn't question the question. He doesn't call them stupid. He treats them like adults. He treats them like human beings. And I think that goes a long way with adults, both within the organization and outside the organization as well.
Not only that, and we talked about this in the offseason, the messaging is always clear. Like last year, Gerard Mayo said 3 different things in one interview. Like, whatever he was talking about, he had 3 different answers. So no matter what, to your point, John, Mike Vrabel is clear, concise, to the point, whether it's us, whether it's his team, it doesn't matter. Everybody knows what page they're on. And if you're not going to get mine, get out. It's very simple. I think that straightforwardness and being that concise goes a long way because they're all grown men. They just want to be treated like grown men. And I'm not sure that happened last year.
I think someone should have asked some of the Jets players after the game if they planned on stepping up or why did they step up or didn't step up, because it looked to me like they just, flew the white flag from pretty much the get-go. And that's a sad sign as we go down the stretch of a football season with a first-year head coach that we think is about culture. Well, maybe Aaron Glenn is going to be one and done with the Jets because, again, Darren Moogie, the general manager, came after him. So he's not beholden to Aaron Glenn. And if the Jets end up 3-14, maybe it's time to move on from him, one and done. Maybe that message just isn't working.
I said that at the end of the game. I thought, could he be another one and done candidate? And I think that the Johnsons are going to resist the urge to do that. I think that they want to, especially because let's not forget, he was in the same position as Gerard Mayo was last year. He played for the franchise, very good player. Aaron Glenn, very good player for the Jets. It's a tough position to be in. It was a tough position last year for Robert Kraft, and I think it would be a tough position for Jets owner Woody Johnson. But if this team finishes 3-14, I mean, it does beg the question. Now, it is important to point out the Philadelphia Eagles are up 13-0 on the Buffalo Bills. If that score holds, the New England Patriots are your AFC East champions. And now, in terms of it being related to the Jets, Buffalo probably doesn't play Josh Allen next week, probably doesn't play a lot of guys. They rest guys, and now the Jets could potentially win a 4th game up in Buffalo. But to go back to the Jets, listen, this was a complete dog crap effort today. Complete dog crap effort. Total no-show. Patriots were going to win this game. Jets are not very good. You traded Quinnen Williams. You traded Sauce, Gardner, they like to say around here. Okay, they've stripped this thing down. I get that. But all that being said, you don't have a quarterback. you feel bad for Breece Hall because he deserves to be on a good team because he's a good piece. You pretty much haven't had Garrett Wilson all season. You got a nice little piece in Mason Taylor at tight end. You got John Mechie. You got A.D. Mitchell that they got in the Sauce Gardner trade. But the bottom line is there isn't a lot of talent here. But all that being said, it's on the coach and his staff to get a team ready to play, regardless of what their record is. This team was not ready to play today, and that's why they ended up getting curb stomped.
The environment certainly didn't help either. I think when you see that as a home player, it's got to be a little bit deflating. But I'd be surprised if they moved on from him after a year. Like, how much longer do you want to be a revolving door? Like, at some point, and I know it looks bad, and today was a piss poor effort, but just at some point, try to get some stability going in your organization. I'd be surprised if they did it, but you're right. Who knows if they win a game? If they lose a game next week, you never know. But look, I'll be 38 in March. This team has never been good. And we were talking on the way up here, the Rex Ryan teams that came in and went to back-to-back AFC championships, those are the only two good Jets teams I remember. Like the Tom Tupa Jets, it's been bad forever. I don't really remember any of them ever being good except for those two Rex Ryan years, and that's it. So you feel bad for the fan base, but it is what it is.
I'm 62, so I go back a little bit further, Kevin. But you're right. They just have not been a viable franchise. They played in one Super Bowl. They won it. They beat the Indianapolis Colts. That was in the Baltimore Colts. That was in 1969. So I was about 6 years old, so I don't remember that one. I think one of the next few Super Bowls, the first that I could comprehend what was going on the TV. But you're right. They have a 15-year drought, a playoff drought right now, guys. That's the longest in North American sports of the four major sports teams. They have not qualified for the playoffs since 2010. Their last playoff win was at Gillette Stadium in the divisional round against the Patriots 28-21. This has become such an irrelevant franchise in the biggest city, and they have a good fan base that must just be like so exhausted of trying to justify why they follow this team.
Yeah, New York football as a whole sucks. The Giants suck. They're vying for the first overall pick. The Jets suck. Everything sucks around here when it comes to football. So it's the reality of it. I mean, I'm not going to play the game of, well, I'm 50 and I remember. But at the end of the day, I will say this. They were competitive at times in the 80s. I mean, John, you'll remember this.
I remember.
Stone wasn't even a thought at the time, but you'll remember this. I mean, when they had Kenny O'Brien, they had Freeman McNeil, Johnny Hector, Wesley Walker, Al Toon, Mark Gastineau, the New York Sack Exchange with Marty Lyons and Joe Klecko and Salam. I mean, they've had some good teams around here. Bottom line is you've had a revolving door at coach and you've had a revolving door at quarterback, and that instability has lended itself to them not being good. Now, Kevin brings up a good point. I think if they do hold on to Aaron Glenn, I do think it'll partly be a byproduct of the fact that I don't think that this is a great crop of head coaching candidates that we're looking at. That's why I know a lot of people think a certain amount of jobs are going to open up. I'm not so sure about that. I know a lot of people think Cleveland could potentially open up and Stefanski could be out. But when you look at who's going to be available, are they an upgrade over Kevin Stefanski? I don't know if there's a guy that's out there right now that you can genuinely say would be a better head coach right now for the Cleveland Browns than Kevin Stefanski. And they went out and beat their rival today, the Pittsburgh Steelers, dampening their playoff chances. So that game today might have saved him. We'll see. The Haslam's talk a good game. They don't always play one. But the bottom line is, I will say this. It's easier to keep a coach when the team is playing hard at the end of the season. You can be bad. You can be terrible. As long as they're competing and playing at a high level. Look at the New Orleans Saints. They came from behind and won today. They're playing for their head coach. Okay? He's done a terrific job, but they're playing for him. And I think at the end of the day, you can't say that about the New York Jets right now. You can't. This was an absolutely embarrassing performance by them today. They were beyond shitty. I don't even know what word I could use to describe how bad they were today. So at the end of the day, Kellen Moore is getting a lot of juice out of that lemon in New Orleans. Aaron Glenn, that lemon's dry, man. It's ready to be thrown away.
So let me ask you this: if I'll backtrack, you said if you play hard, it's easier to keep a coach, and just from a local experience, that's sort of how Bill O'Brien kept his job this year, right? Like the team played hard, and Ultimately, you won a game down the stretch. But in the NFL, does that really matter though? Like it's more results based. The whole profession is results based. But if you're in the NFL and you do that on your home field, I feel like that maybe weighs more than anything else. So again, I wouldn't move on from him just because if I'm them, I want some stability, whether that's good stability or not. It's stability. Um, but yeah, you're right, man. After today, it's hard to look at a guy and say, yeah, they're still going to play for him. But I just don't know how you do it after one season. I really don't.
Again, he was the defensive coordinator under Dan Campbell in Detroit. The first year that Dan Campbell was coaching in Detroit was 2021. They started off 0-11. Then they went 3-3 down the stretch, and you could see they were getting better. They were playing hard, so they carried that into the next season. Ended up going 9-8, and then the rest is history. And now they've kind of fallen back to where the Lions usually are. But I think that when you look at that, that's a totally different situation because they were playing hard for Dan Campbell. Like you guys were there and saw today, it just doesn't look like they gave a crap about what was going on in the football field. And by the way, the New Orleans Saints right now, they're the best team in the NFC South, but they're not going to make the playoffs. The two teams that are going to vie for the division title can't get out of their own way, but give Kellen Moore a ton of credit. That team's played well down the stretch.
And look, the reason for me that it's a barometer is simple. First of all, let's not forget with Aaron Glenn. What exactly did he do as a defensive coordinator? I don't remember those Lions defenses being dominant. If anything, I felt, especially in the playoffs the last couple of years, they were pretty generous. So, and people will say, well, I mean, he must have done a decent job because the Lions didn't make the playoffs without him and Ben Johnson. I think that was more Ben Johnson than Aaron Glenn. But I'll say the other thing I'll say is, yes, for me, I would move on if I'm Woody Johnson. You got to find the right guy, and it sucks that it's a carousel around here, and you recycle coaches every 2 or 3 years, and there's probably 2 or 3 guys that they did have here that could have been a long-term solution that they moved on from. But I think at the end of the day, you're in the largest media market in the world. You're an NFL franchise that has a starving fan base that wants a winner. They deserve a coach that can come in and, if nothing else, get the team to play hard for him. I would move on from him. I agree with Stone. I don't think they're going to. I would. What I saw out there today, that tells me that these guys have already punched their tickets to Cancun. They're planning golf times and when they're going to get together in the offseason and hang out and vacation. They're done with football. And at the end of the day, you want guys in your locker room that want to play football, that care about the game no matter what the record is and the circumstances are, and you want a coach that can get the most out of them. I don't think Aaron Glenn is that guy. All right, enough about the Jets. We've established that they can't keep coaches. They don't have any talent, and they suck. So that's done. We're done with the Jets. Their season is effectively over. It ends next week, mercifully, for Jet fans. For the Patriots, again, if this score holds, they win the AFC East tonight. They don't have to wait until next week. Let's say, hypothetically, this 13-0 score holds or Philadelphia wins, regardless of what the final score is. What do you do if you're the New England Patriots next week? Do you play Drake May? Do you play your starters? Or are you done? You shut it down, you sit your guys, and you hope you win, and then you're off into the playoffs?
So I think it depends. If you're locked into the 2, then you sit. If you're not, you got to play. And especially if that 1 seed is still at stake as well. You need as many home games as you can get. So if you can get that 2 seed, I think you fight for it as hard as you can. Again, if that's locked up before you kick off either Saturday or Sunday, we still don't know yet, against Miami, well, then you sit everybody. But until then, until you have that first or second seed, I think you have to play. You have to. You need the home games. I know they're 8-0 on the road, but I'd much rather a team having to come into Foxborough in January than this team having to go out on the road.
Yeah, because if you look at all the factors in this, the Patriots, again, seem to be locked into the number 2 seed. Now, if Denver loses to the Chargers next week, then they have an opportunity to be the 1 seed. But the Chargers lost last night to the Texans. Maybe they're going to just rest up Justin Herbert, who's been dealing with a broken bone in his non-throwing hand. Who knows what they're going to be all about going into the final game of the season. So, yeah, I agree with Kevin. If you've got a position locked up, number 2 seed, maybe 1 or 2 series, even if you do that. If not, pull the starters, give them that week's rest because, again, only one team's getting a bye. Looks like it's going to be the Denver Broncos in the AFC, and we still don't know who might be the number 1 seed, although right now it's trending to be Seattle. In the NFC, it could also be San Francisco. So, yeah, that bye is so important. You only have 1 team from each conference. I think you rest up the players and get ready to take on the number 7 seed in the wild card round the following week.
Well, the other thing too is the NFL does that thing.
And by the way, hold on. You guys couldn't hear a damn thing I said there.
No.
Okay. That's when you have to unmute. I thought we were going to get through this thing clean. The point I made is this. The Patriots, Mike Vrabel's in a tough spot. He's in a tough spot because unless the Broncos play on Saturday, and there is talk that the NFL is going to flex games into Saturday night, unless they play on Saturday and you know the result of that game, you can't, even if you win the division today, you can't assume you're going to sit your guys on Sunday. Because if, let's say, you're both playing on Sunday and the 1 seed is still in play, because even if Los Angeles sits Justin Herbert, it's the NFL. They didn't play great the other night against Kansas City. They could have very easily lost that game.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't assume if you're Mike Vrabel that they're going to win, that the Chargers aren't going to play anybody and that the 1 seed is out. You have to assume that it's still in play and you have to play your guy. So as much as, yes, it would be benefit to them sitting Drake May and sitting some of these guys, I don't see it happening. Even if they win the division by tonight, I think you're going to need to play your starters next Sunday, especially if Denver's playing after you.
So I heard that whole thing originally just because you're sitting next to me, but I couldn't figure out why you said that, but I just got it. So look, the NFL does that thing where they try to make games line up so teams can't mess around and try to tank or anything like that. There's a shot where Denver plays at 4:25 next Sunday, and they can put that Miami game at 4:25. So you really can't make that call. So it would be nice for one of those teams to play on Saturday. I don't think you're going to get that break. There's no need to have Miami in any window on Saturday. Nobody wants to watch that. But it's going to be a hard decision, to your point, John, just because you might be playing at the same time as Denver as well.
Carolina against Tampa Bay is going to be one game in prime time, maybe Saturday night or most likely Sunday night. Baltimore-Pittsburgh will be the other primetime game, flip-flop with that because it's winner-take-all to get in the division. But I think the Patriots still hold the tiebreaker over Jacksonville. Jacksonville's 12-4. Patriots are 13-3. So they still hold the tiebreaker because I believe they have a better conference record. So they're in really good shape to be the 2 seed. But I think that if they wrap up the 2 seed, don't have a chance at the 1 seed, can you meet somewhere in the middle? I mean, that's not really good radio, but do you have Drake May and the starters play a couple of series just to stay fresh, and then you pull them out in the second quarter or something along those lines, like a preseason game?
I don't think you can. I really don't. I think that the injury risk is so high that I think if there's no chance of securing the 1 seed, I think that they're going to proceed with caution. I do. I think that they're going to sit as many guys as they can sit. You can't sit everybody. You're going to have to play some guys. But I do think that they're going to proceed with caution here, and they're going to play it by ear, if you will. But again, to Kevin's point, the NFL screws around with Week 18 so much that they could both be playing at 4:25, and if that's the case, we're not going to know until probably around 8:15, who your 1 seed is. So again, I would not discount the LA Chargers going into Denver and winning next week. They can't improve their positioning. That's a given. They can't win the AFC West. So all of that being said, they could still play spoiler, though. And if you're Jim Harbaugh, given their playoff struggles in recent years, do you want to sit guys, knowing that if you sit them, you could potentially lose momentum going into the next week? I'm not sure you want to do that either. I could see them potentially sitting Herbert and starting Trey Lance, but I'm not so sure that he's going to sit a lot of other guys because, again, given their recent struggles in the playoffs, I'm not sure that that's something that you want to do if you're Jim Harbaugh.
No, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought of that. But to your other point, that injury risk, man, when you have a game in a week, and possibly, don't forget, there's wildcard games on Saturday. So teams might be going on a short week as well. Who knows if they want to risk it. But to that point about them struggling in the playoffs, I do think building momentum is important, but is it worth that risk? Yeah, all these teams have a ton of decisions to make over the next, 5, 6, 7 days.
It's all based on seeding, too. Like the AFC North champion is going to be the 4 seed, whether that's Pittsburgh or Baltimore. Is that the team you want to play against in the first round? So you want to really fight to be the number 5 seed. Are you concerned that Jacksonville's on such a heater that as the 3rd seed, you want to avoid them? Do you want to avoid the Patriots as the 2 seeds? You want to stay out of the 7 seed. So you're going to see the Bills, the Texans, and the Chargers kind of figuring out what they want to do 5, 6, 7 going forward to try to set up some sort of matchup against a team that they think they have a better chance again. Or maybe I'm just making too much out of that and you're just going to live with whoever they have to play.
I like when you talk about 6, 7.
I didn't even realize I did that, but
you did.
I'm
did.
a hip 62-year-older, yeah.
Right. So that's why Stone is shaking his head. He's really upset by that. It really bothered him. By the way, it's
I'm sorry.
No, you didn't do anything. I'm the one that did the hand gesture. That's who he's pissed at. Started the 3rd quarter in Buffalo, 13-0 Eagles. So Philadelphia's dominated this game. And by the way, I think this game illustrates what I've said about Buffalo all year. And I've said this to you, John. I don't know what to make of this football team. Are they the team we saw in the second half against the Patriots 2 weeks ago? Are they the team that struggled to beat Cleveland last week? Are they the team that has laid a complete egg here in the first half? I don't know who these guys are. That's why it's conceivable that the New England Patriots could get to Santa Clara, folks. It really is, because there's no dominant team in the league, let alone in the AFC. If these guys are the so-called benchmark, and I'm pointing because I'm pointing to the TV, if these guys are the so-called benchmark, then I think the Patriots have a legitimate shot. They've already gone in there and won. If they did face them in the playoffs again, it would be at Gillette Stadium. You know what? I think it's a valid question. Heck, I'll go back to Denver for a sec. Are you guys really afraid to play the Denver Broncos? I know that there's a mystique about the Denver Broncos at home because of the 5280 and the air and the Rocky Mountains and how guys get tired and winded and all this other stuff. But they're a beatable football team. Jacksonville went in there last week and hammered them. Okay? They didn't look great on Thursday night against the Chiefs, who are on their 3rd quarterback. I think they're beatable as well. I mean, again, I've been hesitant to call the Patriots a Super Bowl contender, but given the landscape as we enter the playoffs, they're a Super Bowl contender.
Well, it's good to have you on board, first of all. I've had them in the Super Bowl for about a month now. But
well, you're a homer. Congratulations.
Correct.
I'm not. I'm more pragmatic. Sorry.
Fair. Well, that's a radio thing. So I'm still worried about Denver just because it's Denver. Like, to me, and I go back to, again, growing up, it was always an issue. Mile High was always an issue, just like Miami was always an issue for this team. And I can't get past that. In terms of the team on the field, no, not at all. I'm not worried about the Broncos or about Knicks, but I'm worried about Denver in Denver. It's everything that you brought up. I still worry about until I see them get past that. But the team on the field, no, I'm not worried about them at all.
This thing is so wide open, and this is supposed to be Josh Allen's time, right? Patrick Mahomes is not going to be playing in the playoffs. Joe Burrow is not going to be playing in the playoffs. There's a chance Lamar Jackson isn't going to be playing in the playoffs, and if he is, he looks about 50% of what he normally is. So it's open for Josh Allen. I'll make this declaration right now. When we get to the playoffs, the Patriots have the best quarterback in the AFC. He's playing the best of any quarterback in the AFC, and I trust him because the one thing I've always held against Josh Allen, do you trust him putting together 4 straight games where he doesn't implode at some point with some sort of silly turnover or some blow up that cost his team the game. He's done it throughout the playoffs. He's put up great numbers, but there's always 1 or 2 or 3 plays where you go, what the hell is he thinking out there? I have more trust actually in Drake May because I think inside the pocket, he's better than Josh Allen.
Oh, 100%. And I think and like Josh Allen, I think he can extend plays and make plays outside the pocket, which I think is an element to his game that Patriots didn't have with Tom Brady. They didn't have it with Drew Bledsoe. So he gives them that added dimension. I'm not comparing him to those guys, but when we think about Patriot quarterbacks during the greatest years of this franchise's history, they've been pocket passers. This kid can play from the pocket and win from the pocket, but he can also extend plays and get you key first downs in key situations. But again, I do think that experience does matter here. The one thing that I think helps the Patriots is that this isn't going to be an experience-laden field by any means. Josh Allen will be the most playoff-tested quarterback in the conference. All that being said, he's so helter-skelter and they're so inconsistent, you may not have to worry about him. They could potentially get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. So who knows? And, of course, there's always those 2 teams that – a couple of teams here or there that people don't want to play, right? People don't want to play Houston because of how good their defense are. People right now, all of a sudden, don't want to play the Baltimore Ravens after they mucked by Green Bay Packers last night. Pittsburgh loses today. Pretty good chance they go into Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers next week, especially because Pittsburgh won't have bonehead extraordinaire DK Metcalf. So they have nobody that Aaron Rodgers can throw to that he can rely on. So all of a sudden now Baltimore's in a pretty good position. And look, you know what? All 3 of us have said this. Yes, Lamar Jackson's battled injuries this year. Yes, Lamar Jackson has been inconsistent this year. But if Lamar Jackson gets it going again and he figures it out and Todd Monken gets him back on track, the Ravens on paper are as good as any team in the NFL, never mind the AFC. The Ravens can come out of the AFC and get to Santa Clara. I think they're that good. On paper, pound for pound, they're as good as any team in the conference, in my opinion.
I thought they were going to win the AFC this year, honestly, before the year. And you're right. They're built for the playoffs, power and speed. You can't teach speed. They have plenty of it. And if Derrick Henry gets going in a cold weather game, who wants to hit him? Well, you saw it last night. Nobody wants to actually tackle him in frigid conditions. So I'm with you there. I still don't trust Lamar. I just don't.
Well, when you look at the Baltimore Ravens this year, several teams in the NFL played better on the road. They're 3-6 at home, 5-2 on the road. So they're built to travel, like you said, Kevin, especially in cold weather with Derrick Henry. They can go on the road. They can beat whatever team they have to beat. They're that talented. Along the lines of scrimmage, they looked a lot better last night. I don't know if that had to do with them. The Green Bay Packers absolutely sucking last night. They didn't look like they were ready to play either. But, yeah, that could be a wild card team. Not a wild card team. They'll be the division champ, but that could be a team that sneaks in the playoffs and all of a sudden, kind of like the Giants did in 07 or 2011, all of a sudden you get a 2-3 game winning streak heading into the playoffs, and now you're on fire.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. If there was ever a year where a team that comes out of left field gets to the Super Bowl, this is that year. And you could really say it in both conferences. I think anybody could come out of the NFC too. So it'll be an interesting couple of weeks here until we sort it all out and figure out who the top 7 teams are in each conference. All right, gents, final thoughts here again. Patriots beat the New York Jets 42-10 to improve to 13-3 on the season, 8-0 on the road, only the 3rd time in franchise history that they've gone undefeated on the road. John, I'm going to start with you. What are your final thoughts here as we wrap this up?
I was just pleased how Drake May played because we talked about that on the preview show that over the last 8 games, he's played solidly and they won 7 of those games, but he wasn't playing necessarily at an MVP level. His first 7 games, he certainly was. Today, he looked like an MVP. And again, those good habits that he developed in the first half of the season kind of waned a little bit away from in the previous 8 games. He looked more himself. And look, when you get to the playoffs, and I know I'm a quarterback sycophant, but when you get to this point and it's not cutting time, that's the guy that's going to have to be the guy that leads you.
For me, it's just where they're at right now and how surprising this all is. Even going back to last year and then in October when they started winning games, I was always one of those guys who said just get the graphic that we always see this time of year. You got your contenders, division leaders, wild card, and then in the hunt. All I wanted was for them to be in the hunt this year on that graphic this time of year. These last 2 weeks, and not only are they not in the in the hunt graphic, they're still fighting for the 1 seed and dominating a team at home like they did today. And And John Sarianides, you've said this often, to turn around in the NFL, it doesn't take a long time, but this is insane. To turn around this quickly and have it look this good with so many new faces. Mike Vrabel, I think, is the easy coach of the year. But it's more than that. It's top down. It's Kraft acknowledging that he made a mistake and then going out and getting Vrabel. It's just, for them to be in this spot right now is stunning to me. It really is.
Well, I think it reinforces when you look at what they've done this year, when you look at the job Liam Cohen has done in Jacksonville, it reinforces that you can turn things around in this league pretty quickly. And again, I've said this all season, and I'll echo the sentiment again. Patriot fans were belly aching about how bad they've been in recent years. They sucked for 2 years, man. This franchise right here has sucked for an eternity. The Cleveland Browns have sucked for an eternity. So my point is, be appreciative of what you have, Patriot fans, because if this was New England going through a period of misery with their football team, let's not kid ourselves here. It was 2 years. You can't say 2022 because if they beat Buffalo Week 18 in 2022, they would have made the playoffs. I don't even count the COVID year in 2020. They went 7-9. They beat a couple of really good teams that year, and they were in a bunch of games. They could very easily have been a playoff team that year too. 2021, they made the playoffs. So I think it's one of those things where it has not been a long wait for Patriot fans to watch this team get back to the top. Now what it really becomes about is how do you make a run here, potentially win a Super Bowl, but also how do you sustain it? That was the genius of Belichick. Okay, Brady took those team discounts. A lot of guys took less money to come here, to stay here, to play here. Can Mike Vrabel do that? Can Elliott Wolf in the front office do that? Okay, next year you're going to play a much tougher schedule. Your schedule is very unforgiving next year. So can you replicate this? I think 14 wins, let's say they beat Miami next week. I think 14 wins is going to be hard to replicate next year with that schedule. But it's not about replicating years. It's about staying competitive. You might not win 14 games, but you win 11 or 12. The bottom line is that you're consistently a playoff team and in position to compete for a Super Bowl. That's what they're looking to build here. Again, the Washington Commanders are a cautionary tale. We saw what they turned into this year. Okay, it struck midnight for them pretty quick. So what they've done is impressive. I agree with Kevin. And it's not usually the norm. It takes you a couple years to get it going to this level. But kudos to Mike Vrabel. Kudos to that front office. They identified guys that fit the scheme, guys that are high character that they wanted to bring in that fit the culture. They brought them in. They drafted well. They added impact in the draft. And voila, here we are. They're 13-3 and still have an outside chance of being the 1 seed and could wrap up the AFC East for the first time since 2019 tonight if the Buffalo Bills lose this game. All right, gentlemen, thank you as always. Great job as always. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Stone. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Patriots post-game show. Again, Patriots trounce the hapless New York Jets, and I say that loud and proud with New York Jets people around me. 42-10. Much different than what we witnessed at this stadium a year ago on Thursday Night Football when they lost to the Jets 24-3. Patriots for the 42-10 win. Again, if the Buffalo Bills lose tonight and it's in the third quarter, they're down 13-0, Patriots are your AFC East champions. Till next time, for John Sapochetti, Kevin Stone, I'm John Sarianides. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.